All right, folks. So this is a good one, man. This guy's the real deal. Larry Mazza. He no joke. He lived a very storied life, man, and a very violent one too. At certain points, he's going to tell you his story with the Colombo crime family, man. And those guys ain't no joke. You read the books, you watch the movies, and all of that, and you think, "Oh, this can't be real." Well, I'm here to tell you, and he will in a minute. It's all very real. So, Larry, you want to go ahead and start us off with the beginning? I mean, I've looked at some things you've done, but talk to us a little bit about how you fell into that, into the family, into the life, how you were indoctrinated, and let's just start in the beginning, brother. I'm gonna let you have it.
Yep, that's a great place to start. First of all,
Yeah,
thanks for
right.
inviting me on. I'm very happy to be here. Uh, the one thing I want to mention is the movies are always portraying different about the life. It's not always accurate, and it's usually dramatized and glamorous it is. So, keep that in mind. When we come out telling these stories, it's we lived it and we saw the real side of it. But no, I was just a young kid growing up in a normal family. I had a father that was a fireman, may he rest in peace, a lieutenant for many years in the New York Fire Department. Had a mom that took care of the kids and did work also. So, I came from a working family. And, I was headed to a really good life. I should have been a winner. Instead, I decided, I got misled at a young age into that life when you're a little bit more, I guess, naive, and it's easier to be done. And I into it, and it went downhill. After some good years, it just you get wrapped up in the bad stuff, and we wound up in the war, the Colombo family war, and to fast, we all wound up in prison. Who got killed? Who got injured? Uh, so yeah, I mean, from a good life, a normal life, I wound up in the mob.
Well, let me. You froze up there. Let me ask you something. So, let's just say you're just having your first brushes with the mob. All right, you got your guy. That's well, they call him the Grim Reaper, and I'm sure that's for a reason. I don't know much about mob stuff other than a few guys I've been in the feds with, and some of the stuff I've seen and read and all of that, right? But so let's say you're getting laced by them, and you go into one of their establishments for the first time, and because of who you're with, you're getting treated in a certain kind of way. See, I like that. I know your story's been out there. Like in Louisiana, they bring you a meal, they bring you a little something on the side that they don't charge you for, and they call that lagniappe. That's a little
Mhm.
something extra. So to make this one a little bit different, we want to get a little bit of the lagniappe, right? That little something extra. So you're going
Mhm.
in for the first time, you're under this guy, and you walk into this establishment, and you're getting treated a certain kind of way, a way that you've never really been treated in your life before, the way these gangsters and these guys and everybody that's in there is responding. What's that feeling going on right then that's kind of getting you starstruck?
Well, you hit it on the head. That's what sort of lures you in. You start being treated like a celebrity or a local politician, better than local politicians. You have your own table when you walk into a place. You never wait on a line. I saw doctors, lawyers, all kinds of people that were more important to society than I was, but I went to the front of the line, treated with VIP treatment. And like I said, we had our own tables. There was usually complimentary bottle of wine or champagne, and always the Anizetto or Sambuca at the end. We had your black coffee or espresso. They would put the bottle on the table. You could drink as much as you wanted. Little things like that the normal person didn't get. And we noticed people looking at us like, who the hell are these guys if they didn't know us? But yeah, that's part of what lures you in, and you think everything's going to be that way and rosy and peachy. But again, not to totally backstab the life, but that's what it is. You get backstabbed, and it is a backstab in life. Uh, but those things, like you just said, were the little perks and the good sides of it. If you had, needed a plumber or electrician or whatever, they were expected to drop everything and come and help you. And they did. I mean, we paid them. We didn't shake people.
Yeah, it could
What
get
we
kind of
wanted
dangerous if
was,
they didn't,
we're,
right? Yeah.
yeah, no, we
Yeah.
just want to be the first one they came to help, even if they're on another job, you know, and it could be our social
Yeah.
club. The lights might have went out. We expected them to come to the club, fix our lights, and then go back to their job. And for that, they always had our backing. If anything, if somebody didn't pay them, or, you know, some other local thugs were bothering them, you know, they could come to us and we would take care of them. So it went back and forth. But yeah, the perks of being somebody when you walk into a place were pretty alluring.
Well, let me ask you, so when we're talking about this, they bring you in, you're seeing all of this, and all this is going on, right? In hindsight, having been through the whole thing, when they're looking at somebody and they know they're grooming him and he's going to be somebody they want, is all this preordained? Is it pre-planned? We know we're going to bring him here first. We're going to light him up with this. We're going to do that. We're going to bring this guy along, and we're gonna lace him up a certain kind of way. Is all that really thought about, laid out, and thought out, or is it just something that happens?
No, if you make an impression on the boss, whoever it was, in my life, it was Greg Scarpa. And from day one, he saw the good things in me. He saw I came from a good family. He saw I had loyalty in me. He saw I was respectful. I was smart. I was good with numbers. And all the things that he saw, he knew in his head plan was for me. He was going to bring me along, educate me, groom me, and ultimately bring me into the family as a good fellow or a made guy, or whatever you want to call it. There's also guys that come around and right off the bat, I don't want this guy at the club. Keep him outside. You know, they don't have the same attributes that they're looking for. You know, there's enough. I hate to keep using the word thugs, but there's probably 80% is thugs. They're just there to get beatings or follow orders.
They're never going to make the cut.
But the other 20, right? The other 20% are not only killers and hurters, but they're also earners. You have to learn how to do those bad things. You know, causing damage to somebody. You have to learn how to get through the life. But if you're an earner and you do both, that puts you in an elite status. And I was an earner from day one. You know, I'm still an earner in my life. I do what I got to do. I hustle. I have businesses, and hopefully we get to talk about those. But I learned the other things you had to do to survive that life too, or excel in the life.
Right. Let me ask you a question, Dave. Okay, so I was in Leavenworth and I was around a few guys, right? There was a couple out of Leavenworth and whatnot. And I sit in on a few conversations they were having, right? And afterwards, one of the guys that I kind of kicked it with a lot right there on the line, he pulled me up and he told me, because they had a conversation within the conversation that I never picked up on. They were talking about having a rope around this guy. They were talking about he's one of us, he's one of ours. And it wasn't until after the fact that, and I won't name names, the guy pulled me up and he said, "Yeah, Ronnie, did you get all that?" I told him, "Yeah, I listened to every bit of it." He said, "Yeah, but did you get it all?" And then he started laying out what was really being said with he's one of us, he's one of ours. We got a rope around this one, and all of this stuff. And it was a whole different conversation that took place right before me that I never even picked up on. Can you tell us a little bit about that? You guys got your own language right there, that the little code stuff going on?
Yeah, I mean, most walks of life have their own, I guess, terminology is the word, the way they say things. We may use certain words that other people won't have any idea what we're talking about, like take them to the basement. You know, that's one guy's term for kill them. Another one is send them on a vacation. You know, it was funny too, because we had a guy at the club that Greg told him send them on a vacation. The guy was new around us, and he wasn't really ready for the life. I don't think he actually went to a travel agent. He didn't know what Greg was talking about. You know, but he wanted to take him on on a vacation, and he wasn't coming back from that vacation. But yeah, we definitely have our own way of saying things. But unfortunately, that's been used against us in trials, because sometimes a guy will say something and use a word the wrong way, and it's so obvious that they'll actually use evidence. One time while I was away, a guy was on the phone, or no. He had gotten in trouble because when he was on the phone, he was talking to a partner of his, and they were in the drug business, which was taboo to begin with, but they all do it anyway. Not all of them, a lot do it. And he's made a comment on the phone to send 20 and a half suits to the partner. What is a half a suit? And they actually used it in trial. So all of that stuff, even though you're trying, it doesn't work. You know, if the wrong, but amongst us, between us, yeah, whack the guy, take him out, this and that. Yeah, those are just terminologies, but the government's on top of all of that anyway.
Yeah, eventually they came around to it, huh? Let me ask you something, and this is kind of something that I've toyed with myself and everything, and it's common knowledge, brother. You got a body count, you got a head count behind you, and everything. And I tell myself sometimes that what, those guys signed up for a life, and that coming. But in hindsight, now you've changed who you are, the way you see things, and all of that. Is there anything that haunts you that from the past? Are you able to disengage, or are you haunted by anything from it? I find, and I'm going to be honest with you, I'm doing these podcasts, and I find they fill kind of a void that there's parts of that life I miss, man. And I'm able to do this and relive a little bit of stuff. As far as being I was a prison gang member. It's just a young thug, different level, different thing, concerned where you're at. And but I find that there is part of that control and having those dudes and being able to do all of that I miss, and being able to sit down on these and hear you guys and hear other guys talk. It kind of fills that void for me. Is that the same with you? Is there a little part of it you miss? Is there regrets or?
Well, yes to all of it. Let me start with the regret. The regrets I have are allowing myself to get into the life. Okay. But now, once I was in that life, I'm not going to sit here and bullshit you or lie to you. I enjoyed those perks. I enjoyed earning the money. I enjoyed the respect we got. If somebody had to get a beating for breaking a rule, we all knew that. We all were equals. We knew what we were supposed to do. Okay. A lot of times we were more upset with the person we had to hurt for breaking a rule than ourselves. We were more mad at him. Why did you know that? So the regrets, if I could go back in time and not get in the life, I would do that. However, the realistic of all that is I wouldn't be where I am today. I wouldn't have my son. I wouldn't have, women in my life that meant something to me. My son's mom, my wife now, the businesses I have that from what I learned in that life, I was able to continue on and do things and build businesses. And so the regret I have is only getting into it. Once I was there, like anything else I do in my life, I want to be the best. I want to be the best at it. So I did the things I had to do. And some of it haunts me. Some of it, when you're doing it for wrong reasons, when you're hurting somebody just because the boss said you have to do it, and you don't even really know the reasons, and you can't even justify it in your head. I think of those before, but where I really made reputation on my bones or whatever is during the war. Okay, I wasn't a vicious killer before that, although I was involved in a dozen murders. But once the war started, okay, I was in this life and I did what I had to do to survive it. So I don't have regrets at that. I had no choice. I was there, so I had to act a certain way. And we protected what was ours. And it's my makeup. I would do it again if I was in a position where I had to protect what was mine. getting involved in the life at the young age. And that's what you said at the opening. You know, if there's any kids watching, that's the mistake you're going to make. Stepping into that life, it's like stepping into quicksand. You know, there's no getting out of it. You're going to get sucked in because all around you is treachery and greed and backstabbing. So the regret I have is getting in. Once I was in, I lived life the way I had to, all the way till the end. In the very end, some people want to say I did the wrong thing, but if your boss rats on you, the consigliere rats on you, the big boss knew your boss was a rat, it just crumbles. It crumbles all around you. And ultimately you say, I'm not doing life for this. So, you know, regrets is a word, but I do miss parts of it, I must say. But the best part is this. A lot of the things I was doing back then, I'm still doing. I'm not an angel. I'm still marching to my own beat. I bet the horses. I enjoy going to the track. I enjoy building businesses and making money, but I don't have to kick into anybody. I pay my taxes. My wife sees to that. So I mean, I'm walking a straight line, but I still took the things I learned from that life. Everybody says if you grow up in Brooklyn, New York, you have an edge on the rest of the country. And there's no doubt about that. So everything I did, I came home, I started working for a hotel company. Next thing you know, I was the sales manager. I worked for for a gym. Within 5 years, I owned my own gym. You know, little things like that from what I learned from the past and the street life and school. I mean, I was pretty good in school. I went to college for a while, and it's all coming together a little later in life for me.
Right. So the things that you learn as a mobster and in that life are really, really helping you now. Because I find that too. I mean, there's a lot of cats that used to deal drugs that are now business guys, and they're using some of the same get downs they used with drugs to apply to the business end of things here and now. And probably the same thing with you. All the things that you learned throughout that period of your life, through your whole life, really, but throughout that period too, really probably helps you in a big way in the business life. Because let's face it, guys like us, you get out of something, especially you get out of something. I get out of something in the prison. I woke up one day and looked around, and everybody that called each other brother was getting killed by their brother. And I figured, this is not me. And so you learn these things, and it really does help you
It
in
does.
life. Now we're, like I said, we're playing catch up. You have to cram a lot of living into a little time to get to where you would have been if you would have never got pinched.
That's right, right. And I vowed to make it up at the end. So one of the things I did when I went away, I knew I had I was going to be away a long time. Ultimately, it was years, and I immediately got into a health routine. I said I am going to put these years back at the end. I did a lot of reading, a lot of studying. I played sports. I played ball. I didn't waste my time in there. A lot of guys still kind of smuggle drugs in, and they're just playing cards and doing nothing worthwhile. And the few guys that did worthwhile things have a much better future. You come out and at least you have that in your resume now. You know, I took classes and things like that. But, you know, I knew, and going back to what you said, there's a lot of psychology in life. There's a lot of, in the corporate world, there's backstabbing. It's not only our life. It's funny too, because now when I started getting around different things in Hollywood a little bit, I met a person that was working with the guy that Sopranos. His name was David Chase, and he was trying to get something done in the show. And he turned around and he told David Chase, "You're as bad as the mob guys I." David Chase looked at him and says, "Don't ever say that again. We're worse." You know, and this is a Hollywood producer saying he's worse than in life, you know, everywhere is backstabbing. So, but it's at the highest level of life. So psychology, politics, a lot of that stuff comes into play. And now it's a lot easier for me. I could see right through a person. They come into my gym, or when I had the restaurant, they come in there. And they start talking, you know, right away if they're real or they're not real. So yeah, there's a big advantage to growing up in New York, in Brooklyn, especially in that life.
Yeah. I watched one of your I just watched a little bit of an interview you did before, and it talked about how you got pulled into it. It almost sounded to me like that woman had you pointed and targeted and pegged. And my God, for you, what a I don't know that situation would. I mean, it had to
It,
scare the shit
it,
out of you at some point. You know what I mean? You're
of
going
course,
before this dude they call that, and what's going on? Can you tell us that story?
yeah, yeah. Well, it was uh, a perfect storm. Okay, I was 17, going on 18. She was 30, and we both lied. I told her I was over 18, so she wouldn't feel she was with a minor. And and she told me she was 29 because she wanted to be under 30. So got us a little closer in age. But I was working in a supermarket. One of my jobs was delivering groceries to houses, after the people shopped, if they had big, 2 or 3 box loads. So we wound up little by little getting closer and closer. And after, months of playing games back and forth, we fell into an affair. And this went on for about 6 months. And along the way, she told me she was married and had kids, but the husband's never around. He's always traveling. And at the beginning, you know, this was like, a dream come true for most young guys at that age. And she was a knockout. Uh, so I didn't question it too much. After we got really close and she started talking about my future and helping me in different things, at that point, I was in John Jay College or getting ready to go. And I was getting ready to take the fire department test, which I ultimately did. Uh, but that's a different story because the test I took that I did very well on, a 99 on the written and a 95 on the physical, had me in the very top echelon. I would have been called within 6 months. But a federal judge, threw the test out, saying it was too tough on minorities and women. So after waiting 2 years, I have to wait another 2 years for another test. And in those 4 years, it made it easier for me now to move on and get in business with her. She told me they were developing a business, which they did. And I worked for probably 6 months to a year, 8 months, and I was doing well with it. But like everything else in that life, things come to an end. And for some reason, the company that her and Greg made me the sales manager for blew up, literally blew up. It was whether it was Austin, whether it was an insurance scam or whatever, who knows? To this day, I don't know. But all I know is the business went away, and I was in no man's land. So that opened the door for me to get involved in the rackets. Give me something to do to hold me over or to start earning a living, because I was doing well with the supply company. I hated to see it go, uh, but yeah. So now I'm with her, and she's starting to talk to me about her husband. She wants me to meet him, and I'm just dead set against it. It took another, oh God, between 6 months and a year for me to say okay, because now I was around for a long, long time before I met him, well over a year, you know. Uh, and then ultimately, I says, all right. I mean, enough is enough. She keeps telling me, but she knew that. And when I said it was a perfect storm, you have to realize he had another wife in New Jersey with kids, with 4 kids. He had another wife in Vegas and Manhattan that was an Israeli beauty queen. He didn't have any kids with her that I know of. And he had Linda, who's the girl that I was with, that he wasn't married to her, but it was a common law arrangement. And I didn't know that till later on. I thought they were married. I found out later on it was common law, and he told me why or whatever. It doesn't really matter. And then later on, when I come home from prison and years go by, I heard he had a fourth woman in his life with another kid. So I say a perfect storm. He had his hands full, and Linda was his youngest. And if he's out in Vegas for 3 or 4 nights, he's not going to want his youngest girl going out to clubs and things like that. So in some ways, I made his life easier, and ultimately he approved or okayed this relationship. And it went on for almost 10 years. So it wasn't a joke. There was true feelings involved. But that sort of made it easy for me to get into the life. And now once it got to the point where he sat me down when he knew I was getting paranoid, because now I knew who he was. And I said to myself and to Linda, he's going to kill me someday. He's not going to let this go on forever if he finds out. If he finds out, he's not going to let it go on. And she saw that this was causing me to stay away, because now I felt like I was doing the wrong thing. I said, now I know the guy and I'm still sleeping with her, So eventually he sat me down, and that's when I thought I was going to die. But I don't know why. Something came over me, and I went along with it. And I said, okay, I actually says when he told me, I know what's going on and it's okay. I looked at him, and I always said I would never admit it. Under no circumstances can I admit it. But I looked at him, I says, Greg, I have a lot of respect for you, and I know you're far from an idiot, but only an idiot knows what's going on. He busted out laughing. He took me out, put his arm around me, held me tight, and it was like a whole new beginning for us. Now we were the Three Musketeers, but he did tell me, if anybody outside of the three of us ever finds out about this, he says, you and I will be killed. And I'm only 18, maybe 18 and a half. And I'm hearing that I can be killed for something. How many 18-year-olds hear that? You'll be killed. We'll both be killed, because he was allowing it. And that was one of our rules. Later on, I started learning about all the rules and actually heard them officially. But that night, I felt like the biggest hypocrite, because when they're telling me these rules, I'm looking at everybody sitting there. Every one of them broke most of those rules. So, but anyway, yeah. So that's how it all started.
You had to live that 10 years, that whole 10 years that this went on, under the knowledge that if anybody found out, it's over. It's they're gonna go ahead and kill both you guys. That's a rough way to live, huh? Especially in that setting, huh?
Yeah, but you know what? Let me say this. It was not as rough as me having a relationship with her on a sneak, like him not knowing. That I know I'm dead. Okay. Once I was safe from him, it was my biggest fear. Okay. Nobody else was going to find out. And, they're not going to catch us, because we were, the time, when we were together, it was in the house, the door locked, we were just alone. But I mean, I was there sometimes 3-4 nights in a row, and my car was parked in the driveway in the back. But, nobody was really going to find out. And if they had suspicions, and I later found out a few people wondered why I was always with them and things like that. But nobody's going to say that. Nobody's going to say that to Greg.
Right.
They'll kill them on the spot. How dare you disrespect me like that? Or my wife, or Larry, and he killed him, so nobody's gonna bring that up. Trust me. And you know what? I've learned a lot of people got their own skeletons. So mind your business.
Yeah, exactly. And from what I understand, it seems to be that, like I said, I've had some contact with a few families, and it seems to me like, there's these rules in play, but everybody's got one or two of them that they're just breaking. It just seemed like that to me.
Well,
you know what I mean? That everybody got their secrets.
Start at the top. You got the number one rule. A boss is a boss is a boss. You never go against him or the family. Never. Okay? I mean, just look at the list of guys that went against the family. John Gotti, Vic Arena, Sammy the Bull, the gas pipe with the Lucchese family. It goes on and on and on. It's like, weren't they told that same rule? We fought for our boss because Vic Arena tried to take over. He broke the rule. So we were fighting for him. Okay. Then you got no sleeping around with wives and stuff. To go on and mention names of many that I know for a fact that were doing it. One of them was in our crew. He went to prison, and another guy in the crew was sleeping with his wife while he was in prison. He found out. He wanted satisfaction. They ruled against him because the person that was having his father was somebody. So Now it's okay. So that means, but somebody else does it, they get killed. So that's another one that not too many people. And look at me and Greg. I mean, I didn't know at 17 years old that this was a rule of Cosa Nostra. I knew I was doing the wrong thing, married woman, but not for the same reasons, obviously. Just out of ethics and religion and whatever. But Greg knew what was going on. And that's rule number 2. Drugs is taboo. No drugs. Okay? Greg Scarpa was a kingpin. Not his son. His son got nailed for it. Later on, we found out because Greg was an informant. So let's jump to those are 4 rules he's breaking out of the 5. The 5th one that nobody ever talks about is counterfeiting. Okay? I don't know him to be a counterfeiter. I've never seen him do that. I think because basically he was collecting so much money. If he would have done that in the neighborhood, he'd be getting some of his own fake money back. So that's probably why that's a rule in Cosa Nostra. We deal in cash. We get a lot of money. We don't want counterfeit. So, but don't talk about that one too much. We used counterfeit credit cards, but they weren't counterfeit. They were duplicates. They were duplicates. We just made a duplicate of your card before the chips were in there, and you didn't even know it was being used. So anyway, so all the rules were being broken, and just again, I'm gonna start sitting here throwing names around, but I know for a fact that several, probably 80% of the guys in the life were breaking rules. So that tarnishes the whole aura of Cosa Nostra a little bit when that's a fact.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you something, because a lot of people have this question, and I do too. I mean, when the feds come in with RICO acts and they start hitting stuff, they decimate families. They come in and they come down so hard on everybody. They find a way to get a motherfucker. No ifs, ands, or buts about it.
Right.
Now, where does the mob sit now? I mean, it seems to me like nothing's ever gone forever. Stuff goes underground and it has a way to resurface. So, I mean, I wonder, are they just underground and we're going to see them again in the future in a different way? And I just, a lot of people wonder that.
Here's what I'll say to that. I was sitting in prison, and when I came home, I sort of thought about the life. I kept saying how they could change it a little bit. And the problem is it's a dictatorship. So if a guy's a boss, everybody has to listen to him. Even if he's wrong, even if he's vicious and violent, you just have to listen to him. There's no votes. There's no nothing. Okay? If I was starting it all over again, I would model it after the Knights of the Round Table. You have a round table, and the most important guys are the knights at that table, whether it's 15, 16, 8, whatever it is. Okay? So there's nobody sitting at the head of the table that everybody wants that seat. And what happens generally at that table, one of the men comes out a little above anyway. The men are going to look to him, whether he's been around longest, whether he's the most successful, whether he's the smartest. So I would make it that way, and I wouldn't kill. I take killing off the table. Okay? That's where the government draws a line big time. They're not going to say, well, I shouldn't give the government that much credit, especially after what they did to us during the war. They ignited the war. They would, and the FBI doesn't have a very good reputation anymore. But I get in a whole different track when I start talking about that. But I would definitely stop the killing. And I've said this in the past, even when I was in the street, and guy had to they wanted to put him to sleep, I would say, why don't we just give him a beat? I mean, a beating, an unbelievable beating, okay? When he gets out of the hospital, we him up again. I mean, he's going to learn his lesson. It's more, other people will see this happening. And eventually, the guy keeps getting beaten. He's going to leave. He's going to leave Brooklyn. He's going to leave New York. He's going to move to Florida. He's going to move to California. He's going to move. You don't have to kill him and face life in jail, So things like that. I think if I heard right, the leaders that are out there now are sort of on that wavelength. They still have their structure, I understand, but they're not killing. So that's a step in the right direction. in my opinion. So,
Right. Well, okay, so we're gonna you. Okay, so we got an hour with you. I hope we can get you back on. So there's 20 minutes
yeah,
left,
listen,
and I would like to switch gears.
yeah,
I'd
I
love
just
to
want to tell
hear
we can do
about
this.
your successes now.
All right, well,
You there?
that'll be a good thing to talk about. And I want to say this: we can do 2 3 parts. You know, I'm happy to be here. I enjoy doing a podcast, and I see the way you're running yours. I'll be more than happy to come back. I've done different guys' shows maybe a dozen times. Just keep going back on. I mean, there's always something to talk about, whether it's
Yeah.
current events or I'll talk politics once in a while. I don't really care. I'm okay with that. So I will come back. But the successes I'm having, first of all, are from perseverance and persistence. It's not because I got lucky, I hit or anything like that. I lost everything I had when I went to prison, and it was a lot of money, a lot of business, some properties, you name it, all got lost. So I came home with zero, but I had a good family. My dad and mom, my whole family was supportive. So I had I was lucky in that capacity. I was working I mentioned before, I worked at a hotel. And what I was doing, because I was also working in a gym, I was the activities director. But because of whether it was my personality, my attitude, I got elevated quickly to running a whole division of the hotel, a timeshare resort. So that started making my first good paycheck. At the same time, I kept my gym things going because I enjoyed that. I did it the whole time I was away. So I ultimately opened the gym of my own, and it's flourished. It's grown. I have probably a dozen trainers under me that use the gym. We have a big outdoor section on the river. So you only have an indoor gym, we have an outdoor gym. We have martial artists there that teach and different styles and different things from kickboxing, which I did, when I was a kid. Well, actually, I did it more than when I was a kid. I started as a kid, continued it even when I was in Florida on vacations. I met a lot of people here that were extremely good martial artists. When I was in prison, I came across boxers and martial artists and just kept training and training and training. So when I came out, I had a dojo as part of my gym. And now I have different people using that too. Uh, I did write a book about my life, and it was well received. It's gotten me onto several documentaries where I was able to keep telling my story and promoting my book. Robert De Niro read the book, and he told me 3 different times it was terrific. He had a plan for it, but Robert De Niro's got 50 projects in front of him every day. So it didn't happen, but I don't think it's not going to happen. But he said it was terrific. He asked me if I'd be his consultant on The Irishman, which I did. And I wound up playing a hitman in The Irishman. I'm in the scene where they kill Albert Anastasia. It also got me a part with Kevin Kaufman. He had a show called The Perfect Murder. I played a corrupt ex-cop who was suspected of murder, and it's a true story out of Vegas, the Ron Rudin murder. You could check that out, Ron Rudin. It was a really good story. Nobody knew who killed him, and there was a lot of people who wanted to kill him, including this ex-cop. And I worked for Joe Pesci's character in Casino, Spilatro. So that was a good part. Like I said, the documentaries. I had my own talk show on a network called Mob TV. It was Mob 24/7. It's still in the growing stages. It's very tough now with streaming and everything to get a new network out there. But my producer's still working on that. But I had 2 seasons, so I brought on other mob guys. I brought on ex-cops. One of them was Mike Dowd. That's a guy you may want to have on your show. One of the most corrupt cops in the history of New York. Frankie Steele, a good friend of mine, came on. He was from The Life. Another friend, Steve. I mean, it goes on and on. Aralata, Johnny A. Light, I had FBI agents come on, talk about their side of it. So all of those things were positives. My new wife that I know, well, not new now. It's we got married in 12. We're together almost 20 years. Well, maybe more. I hope she doesn't watch this part, but she's a blessing. She was a vice president of a company, and because of me, she had to step down. But they gave her, because she had clearances like into the White House and amazing stuff. So she did, and she opened up her own business, which was a florist. And the florist, we added a bar, a wine bar. So now ladies started hanging out there. We added a piano player. They started bringing their husbands. Within 2 years, we were in a bigger place, and now we had a full-grown supper club with music every night. And we had that about 7 years. And just before the pandemic, lucky for me, somebody wanted to buy it, and we sold it, and we did well with that. And I tend to be better on the other side of the bar anyway. I like restaurants and bars and enjoying myself. Working the thing was probably the hardest job out of everything I said. Was working at a restaurant, nightclub was tough. So all those things, and now the latest thing my producer hooked me up with, as we're still working on scripts. I have more than one script. I have a script for the war. I have a script for an episodic. I also have a brilliant writer named Richard Haas, who wrote a play that he wants to have this on Broadway, the Bronx Tale. So that's still in the works. And the last thing I'll mention is my latest venture. Again, my producer did it. It's called InsideStraight.com. Because of my years in the gambling industry, I'm somewhat of an expert. I'm not boasting about that, but if you spend, from your 15, I'm almost 65. So from 15 to now, I've been in the gambling business to some extent. Whether I was the bookmaker, whether I was a consultant, whether I was a gambler, and I've amassed a ton of connections, and I know how to handicap games, the things that are important that go toward the point spread. So it's a membership base. It's very inexpensive. It's $49.95 a month, but there's specials if you join for the whole year. It turns out to be worth the price of a newspaper for the year. If you're gambling and you don't join, you're crazy. Me or somebody. There's other pros out there too, but they get the inside information. At least you have a fighting chance. You're not going to have a fighting chance. You'll never win if you don't have somebody telling you what the wise guys, what the professionals, and what that point spread, why it's moving. There's a lot. It's like the stock market. Would you just go invest in stocks without talking to a stockbroker or researching the stock? People look at the news and say, I'm going to bet the Braves tonight, or I'm going to bet the Yankees tonight. And they have no reason. They just pick it out and they do it. So they're burning their money. So the latest, it's called InsideStraight.com. And I think it's a really good service. We give a lot of good information. Last night we had 3 winners, and the Colorado game, which was an underdog, we pushed because we took 1.5 runs and we took the money line. They lost by 1, so that was a wipeout. The other 3 games won. A few nights last week, I was getting calls from some members. They can't believe it. I was 9-2, 9-3, and 11-3. Now there's nights I'm pedestrian. There's nights we go 4-4, 4-5, 5-4. Because there's no guarantees and it's not fixed. But at the end of the year, if you follow, you got a good chance to win. So those are the things I'm doing. And I did a speech at the Mob Museum in Las Vegas, which is definitely worth watching. It was my first one. I've come a long way since then. And it's called Not So Glamorous. So they had guys like me come up and make speeches. I thought it was a Q&A. The night before, they told me, no, you're going to be up there for an hour making a speech. So I was in Vegas, and I walked the strip with my wife, Kelly, and I remember, how am I going to present this? So what I did was I started with where I am today, which is more exciting, more interesting to talk about the movies and stuff like that. And then I phased back in time to how it all happened. And it went over really well. So if anybody wants to watch that, take a look. Like you said, I'm on probably more podcasts than almost anybody. I was on Vlad, Valuetainment, You guys right now, seriousness and silliness is a regular. Scotty Stooch. I'm leaving out a million of them, but I don't mean to.
To know that once you get out of the life, it's not over. It's once you decide to step back or never get in, there's a whole thing out there. You appreciate things more. Everything you have right now is yours, and the government can't take it.
Right.
You know,
Right.
it must feel different, feel better. It just feels.
It feels great. Here's what I say. This is the way I put it, because I've seen a lot of guys go out, and I don't mean this in a bad way, but they go on a crusade. And when you overdo it, sometimes it comes off as phony. And I'm not saying that's for everybody. And there's some guys that found religion. I say this, to be honest with a person, it's not the easy way out, taking that lifestyle. Turns out to be the hard way, because you're dodging bullets, you're dodging the law, you're dodging your superiors who want all your money. You're always dodging something, and you're always maneuvering and scheming, okay? The easy way is to go through school. Listen to your parents. Go to school. Try to be something, whether you go to trade school and become a plumber or an electrician, or you go to the school like I got the thing behind me that my father went to, Delahanty, they called it. It was where you learned about putting out fires and how to rise in the fire department or the police department or whatever. So those are things I would say. That's not the easy way out. The easy way is to do it the right way. And you don't need that life, the life we came from, for respect. And you don't need it to earn a living. You can earn a living the right way, the easy way, not the hard way. And you earn respect as a man, as a person. You don't need that life for it. I still get a lot of respect. I walk into places, and sometimes I'm humbled by it. They treat me so good, and some of them know who I was, but it doesn't matter anymore. I'm just Larry now, and I still, Greg did tell me once a long time ago. He says, when you got what it takes, when you learn, when you walk into a room, they'll smell you when you walk in. They'll know exactly who and what you are. And I guess I learned it because I could go into places in the middle of in the Midwest, and for some reason or another, they want to sit with me and talk to me and get to know me, and and they say, "Oh, I knew you were from Brooklyn," or "I knew you were from New York." They could tell. So just be real, and you can get the same respect. You won't get the fear, but that's the difference. In that life, they feared us more than they respected us. Now I think it's a genuine respect for the person that you are, that you've become, the changes you made, whatever. So yeah, you don't need that life for respect or to earn a living. I've never seen a more respected man than my father, because they all knew he was a fireman. He was risking his life, and I still get the respect now, just because of the person I am, I hope. Not because they fear me from being in that life.
Right. Well, look, brother, I'm going to, I can give my word on this. I'm going to get all this straightened out. If we can do a part 2 next week and dig into some things, I'll bring something better to the table on my end for sure, man. And, man, I sure appreciate you coming on here.
It's okay. Just we'll talk during the week. I am, like I said, I'm very busy from 6 on. So it would always have to be the 4 or 5 latest. And just let's touch base, because I do travel for different reasons. So, I'm actually waiting to possibly travel to California or up to New York area. I don't know where you're based right now.
I'm in Idaho.
But okay. But I have my iPad. So even if I'm in a hotel room, we can make it happen. And and like I said, I'll get you some people come on your show down the road that I had on my show, which aired on Mob TV, like I said. So yeah, I'll help you in that regard for sure.
I sure appreciate it. Hey, and anything you want on this green screen that you want us to put up here during this whole conversation, whenever I talk, it pops up. Send me that, and we'll get it up on the screen. Anything you want up there, any advertising, anything. All right, perfect. Yeah, brother, I appreciate you, man.
Yeah.
And it is very good to have
All
made
right,
your
thank you
acquaintance.
very